Welcome everybody. Here we are again, Steve and Tony. We're here to offer you some more fun and secrets, tips, and tricks on how to get more clients in your coaching practice, or more specifically, what might be keeping you from getting clients. In fact, today we're going to talk about the top fears that are really probably holding you back, most likely holding you back from getting more clients. For example, the first one that we talked about is this one I hear from so many people, whether it's clients of mine or prospects or leads or potential clients. I think my prices are too high. I think I need to lower my prices. I don't think people can afford me. Well, the challenge with that is most people put value on dollars. And I don't like to say it that way. Not You can be the best coach in the world, but if you're charging, $100 versus somebody else who's charging $1,000, they're going to go, oh, well, they're only $100, so they must not be as good. Even if you are that much better. Oh God, this one's $1,000. They're more expensive. That means they've got to be better. So when you think about that, when you think about lowering your prices, ask yourself, are you lowering the value, or are you lowering the perceived value by doing that? There's a way Michael Neal likes to talk about how to create the pricing structure. And he says, okay, write a number down. And if it's not an immediate yes, then go higher or lower. And if it's still not an immediate yes, adjust. If it's immediate, oh, I don't think that's high enough, go higher. Do it right away. Don't just wait and go, no. You write down like $5,000 for your program and it's like, that's not enough, immediately raise it. And then if that seems too high, immediately lower, get in between somewhere. Because once you get to that point where you're like, that's it, then you're going to go with confidence regardless. And it's going to help you really be confident when you talk about your program and the pricing to your program. Speaking of programs, remember, Steve and I here are partnered up for the Create Your Miracle Results program. So make sure you reach out to one of us. Next week when we go live, I'm going to actually drop a link with some more information you guys can go to check out. And we'll really start getting this ball rolling quick, fast, and in a hurry. We are ready to launch this thing, and we have hardly any spots left. So, Steve, what else would you like to add about the price piece?
It's fun. I'm glad you mentioned that. I always forget. Like I have so much fun with you on these lives. I'm like, oh yeah, we have a project coming up. I think it's interesting. When I came into coaching, it was actually by accident. I was offering a program, and I offered coaching as an alternative, which was higher than the program I was selling. But if you worked with me in the program, you got me as included, right? And I put a number on there. I'm like, there's no way anybody's going to say yes to this number. And it was working for a little bit. All of a sudden, a person says to me, I think I'd like to take you up on your coaching offer. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. And in my mind, I am in dire panic. I'm like, are you kidding me? I don't even know how to send a person an invoice. I don't even know how that works. And I'm like, go ahead, give me your name, the one you want to use on the paperwork, phone number, best email address, and billing address, right? And so I did that, and we had a great month. It was only a month of coaching. We had a great month of coaching, and she ended up renewing, and I was like, there's something to this. And I'll be honest, this was back in 2014. It was $500 a month. And I was like, in my mind was like, nobody's going to say yes to this. And when Tony was talking about, if you write the number down, it's either going to be a hell yes or a hell no. Think about that, because mine was a hell no. And I ran with it because I was expecting a lot of no's, and I got full quick. I was still working a full-time job, so I had to fit people in on my lunch hour and after work and so forth. And then I doubled it. And I got full again. I was like, oh, there's something to this. Something's going on here. And I think what Tony was really amazing at articulating is the value that we put on things. Is that there's a really cool story that Tony Litvin, Rich Litvin talks about. And he says there's a woman, I'll be quick on this because it's there's a really powerful story. And there's a woman in a coffee shop, and she sees this well-known artist, $1 million artistry. The paintings in auctions go for an absorbent amount of money. She's like, oh, that's the guy. She comes running up to him, and she's like, hey, I'm a big fan. He's like, oh, all right, cool. And she's like, I noticed you were doodling on the napkin. That's really awesome. Do you mind if I get a picture with you? And he's like, yeah, no worries. She gets a picture with him, selfie, and all that kind of fun stuff. She's posting on social media, and she's trying to get up the courage to ask for for the napkin drawing. And finally, she's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so scared to even ask. Can I buy your napkin?" And he's like, "I don't know. It's my napkin. I was drawing what was on my mind. Fine, I'll sell it to you." And she's like, "All right, how much?" And he says, $5,000. And she went, $5,000? It took you 15 minutes to draw that on the napkin. And he goes, "See, that's where a lot of people misunderstand value. It didn't take me 15 minutes to draw on that napkin. It took me my entire life." And when I heard that story, I went, wow. You see, we're so used to, like what Tony was talking about, we're so used to trading time for money that's we see working an hour and getting an hourly wage. You go down and see a lawnmower, so to speak, a push lawnmower with like $300, a riding lawnmower is about $1,500. They both do the exact same thing, identical. One's going to get you there quicker. Mm-hmm. So there's different in the understanding of coaching, and I have a client right now, and he charges $10,000 for 6 months of coaching. And he said that he was on a call with a young lady, and she's like, "I'm between two coaches right now, and there are some things here that I'm weighing up. Same price, same longevity of the coaching." And he says, "All right." She's like, "What do you mean?" So she was expecting him to fight for her. Mm-hmm. And there's no fighting for somebody. You're fighting for the limitations you're dealing with. But never fight for yourself as a coach. You're not defending yourself as a coach. There's no defense there. You're a powerful person on how you showed up. And she said, "The one thing that I love about you is I can be me and authentic, and you don't judge me." And he goes, "That's funny because it's exactly the same way I choose my coach." And she goes, "Huh, okay, I'm in." And it was just like that. And you think, good Lord, $10,000 for coaching. In 2014, 2013, I was in a place where I could have easily walked away from this planet. It wouldn't have been hard. I would have left my family behind. That would have been challenging. But in a moment, I had a coach take a stand for me. And when he did that, it changed my entire life. And I've been on a journey now. I've easily invested a couple $100,000 in my coaching career. And when you take a look at that understanding, coaching isn't a 6-month thing. Coaching starts with a 6-month conversation, but it lasts literally a lifetime. I've had clients come back to me years later and say, "Man, I just had the most craziest thing happen to me in my life, and your voice popped into my head, and it was this, and it's a conversation we had 3 years ago. And if it wasn't for that conversation, the questions you asked me, I wouldn't have made it through the circumstance." I'm getting serious on this part right here because it really tags my heart when there's an authentic, powerful coach that is taking a stand for you as the person. And when you're taking a stand for that person, you are no longer relevant in the conversation. It's only that person that's in your life. Steve Hardison was asked a question years and years and years ago. He said, "How many coaches do you have to make $1 million a year?" And he goes, "I only have one." Like, "What do you mean you only have one? You have $1 million a client?" He goes, "No, I don't. I only have my next client." You see, when you talk about putting a price tag on your coaching, people say, "Well, it's a money grab and all this kind of stuff." I'm like, you're getting paid not for the value that you're giving in an hour. You're getting paid for the lifetime transformation of a belief that can release that person and actually create true, powerful, lifelong, lasting, personal and relational freedom. And when you look at it like that, and you change that thought process, you can't put a number on it. It's almost impossible. Tony, I don't know if you saw a post that I put up yesterday. I was outlining all the stuff that has happened since this time last year. Mm-hmm. I was in and out of the hospital 3 times. I've had multiple root canals. I've had multiple tooth extractions. I had some kind of funky thing going on. I don't know what the guy did, but he drilled and replaced and all that kind of stuff. And I had a couple of herniated discs in my neck. I have had some kind of crazy sickness for an entire month straight. I've had lower back pain shoot down my leg. I've had I don't know. It just kept going on and on and on and on and on. I'm like, good Lord. That 10 years ago would have killed me. There's no way I would have mentally made it through it. I would have gotten a divorce probably. But when I looked through it, it was the coaching mindset that got me through all this stuff. And see, that's what the ability, if you're thinking here, if you're listening right now and you're like, man, do I want to be a coach? If you're asking yourself, do I want to be a coach? The answer is yes. There's probably a fear in it. And the first fear that Tony was talking about was the fear of how much money do I charge? Tony, do you mind if we jump into the next?
No, please do. Please do. We're already approaching our
limit, right? Sorry. So my heart got heavy for a minute there, man. Sorry about that.
It's all good. All good. I love everything you talked about. I love that story about the napkin. I knew that story as soon as you started.
Yeah. I figured you did. Yeah, it's a good one. So it's, how do I create a client? It's like, and this is where it gets really frustrating for me because I have had coaching people that I know in my life that have tried to sell me coaching. And that's not how you do it. Mm-hmm. You show up for the person, you give it away. You give away the kitchen sink during your conversation. You coach so hard and powerfully that they just walk away. And if you never talk to them again, they walk away going, I don't think I can ever be the same person. Whether they can't tell the difference, and this is a rich thing, they can't tell the difference between a paid and a free coaching call. Mm-hmm. If you show up like that, there's no such thing as selling. It's right. What do you want to do next? There's not, well, hold on a second here. Let me get my pricing sheet out here. Which one would you like to do? I have the refrigerator that's 26.3 and it's 33.1 Fahrenheit. That's what we're doing here, man. That's not what we do as far as coaches. What we do as coaches is we create an experience. And if they're digging it, it's like, well, what do you want to do next? They're like, I want to work with you. What does that look like? So now the conversation is completely different. Instead of getting on the call and saying, what do you want? And they say, and they tell you what they want. And your response is, we could totally do that. Yeah, we're going to crack fact. We're going to go bigger than that. How does that sound? It sounds really exciting. Yep. So, there we are. So if you want to know what to do, one of the things that Tony and I are going to spend a lot of time on is the coaching conversation. Right. It's not just to create powerful, lifelong lasting results, but it's also to have an enrollment conversation, not to enroll them into coaching, but to enroll them into a possibility that's so big that it's just mind blowing it's almost like, man, I can't not be there now that I know that exists. How can I walk away from something like that? See, that's where we spend our time with people. We don't just coach on how to do it. It's not a teaching session. That's a waste of time. You can get a book for that.
Yeah.
It's actually you experiencing it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
No, and it's true. And it's one of the things we mentioned a couple times here, and that's when Rich Litvin does his initial calls with people, he books 2 hours. Some people do half an hour, some people do an hour. I don't know of anybody outside of him that does 2 hours on an initial call. Yeah. And with no cost to that call. That's the initial call with him. And so he explains it to people that his entire purpose for that is to show up so powerfully that, like you just said, there is no selling. There's like, oh, what would you like to do next? Or, where would you like to go from here? Because if you've showed up so powerfully and you've coached your heart out for 2 hours straight, maybe an hour and 45, there's some pleasantries in there somewhere, but but for that much time, then there is nothing. There may be a second call if you're doing 2 hours. There may be a second call, and there may be a, hey, what does this look like? If you're doing an hour call, there's likely going to be a second call. Very rarely do you end up on an enrollment conversation after call 1. But the main purpose that you said is to show up powerfully. If you don't show up powerfully, the teaching, like you said, teaching is that's not coaching. Teaching isn't coaching. We talked about that last time.
Different.
It's way different. And teaching doesn't really help people discover what's possible, in my opinion, or at least not everything that's possible. And when you're teaching, you may be teaching down a certain path that you've pre-designed, which may not be the path that's right for that person, which when you're coaching and you're discovering, you'll find that path and help with that path.
Right on. what helps too, brother, is, you know, we had the third topic on here we were going to talk about. This is the easy one, is telling the truth.
Oh, yes.
There was I was talking to a gentleman. This was years ago, and this is when I was just getting my coaching courage, right? Just getting bold enough to ask the questions that made me sweat. And it's just a big alpha dude, just great guy, just really very alpha, very a little bit combative. And I was like, oh, I don't want to ask this question. I remember sitting in the chair, and all of a sudden I looked over, I panned over at myself, and I had a little bead of sweat. And I'm like, oh crap. And I'm a very spiritual guy, so if you didn't know this, that's me. And guys like, you better ask him a question, man. I'm going to tell you right now. I'm like, I don't want to ask him a question. And because I knew it was the one thing that would have either set him off or got to the truth.
Right.
And I said, I'll say Tony because it wasn't you. Like, Tony, what are you afraid of? What are you so afraid of here? Just like that. And I'm going to tell you, his face went that red just for like a second. I'm like, oh, crap. He's going to reach through Zoom and pull me through. That's all I can think of. And he went, what did you say to me? What are you afraid of? And he went, I went, oh, crap. That's where it is. See, we hide behind our stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We're great at it. Oh, I tell you what, I was an expert at hiding. I had shields up. I had 47 masks. I had all kinds of stuff. But when I stopped for a moment and I actually addressed the question with myself, what am I afraid of? Came down to all kinds of stuff. And here's the funny thing. This hulking person, by the way, I'm 6, almost 2. He's bigger, taller than me, and wider by maybe by 2. He says, I can't look bad in front of my peers. And that was where the coaching really started. Mm-hmm. And as soon as that showed up, I was like, man, I identify with it like crazy. So I let him know. And as soon as that happened, and I won't go into it because that would really elongate this call.
Right.
But there's a certain way that Tony and I coach that when that shows up, when what really is there finally comes to the surface, that a lot of times we don't see them, that's when the coaching really starts. That guy's life shifted that day. It wasn't because of what I said to him, but it's just because of the question and what he said to himself afterwards. See, that's what's called opening up an insight and seeing the blind spots that are there that are holding you back.
Right.
See, I know for a fact right now, whether you're a coach or not, you've got something that's like you want to run forward and create your dreams. And it's the same ones that have been there last year and the year before. Just be honest with ourselves. And they're just not there. We're creeping, right? We're creeping along.
Right.
But imagine for a moment you sat there and looked at the habits that you put in place over the last 12 months that kept you from what you wanted, that maybe they weren't there. Where could you be now at the end of the year? Beautiful. I love it. So when we're sitting there, we're going through all this stuff and we're really creating something strong for a person. It's about helping that person identify their blind spots. Mm-hmm. And that's what coaching does.
It really does.
Anyways, I'm going to help.
No, and you're right. And as coaches, oftentimes, you know, we may have to ask a few questions before we get to where that roadblock, that fear, that change is. And don't be afraid to keep asking. If you haven't seen like I don't know if you saw Steve impersonating the guy, how he sighed, he dropped his shoulders. I mean, you can see not just the physical emotion in it, not just not just feel the emotion. You can see the physical change in the person when they've let down their guard, and you're like, okay, here we are. Now we're getting somewhere. And when you realize what that is, and as Steve pointed out, now you have the ability to change that person's life forever.
I'm going to say something out loud real quick because I think Hugh already probably knows this, but I'll say it for somebody that may not. Usually when you ask somebody a question that puts them in a corner, but they won't tell you they're in a corner, they ask you a question back, and it's usually deflection, which he probably already knows anyways. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to call it out. Like, do you typically do that? What do you mean? When somebody asks you a question that makes you uncomfortable, do you say another question back? And that used to make me very I'm like, oh crap, because it sounds combative,
right?
But it's not combative. It's digging into something. It's asking the questions that all the people in their lives are afraid to ask them.
Yeah,
it's a great point, Hugh.
It is a great one. Thank you. All right, Steve. All right, brother. I think we're gonna have to
Yeah.
We can't,
I broke my promise.
can't carry over today. All right, guys. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Remember, create your miracle results. That's our upcoming program. Reach out to one of us. Next week on this live, we will have a link that you can go to and check out for more information. Make it a great rest of your day, and see you next time.
I'd like to throw something out there really quick. If you're on here, you listen to this replay or whatever, even if it's 10 weeks from now, if you want to hear and know what one of our enrollment conversations looks like, ask. We'll give you we'll have an enrollment conversation with no strings, nothing. There's no intention except for having one of those conversations. I love doing those anyways, and I know Tim does.
Yeah, me too.
So, who's out?
Bye, guys.